A very important part to be able to make profound analysis of any given chart or any part of a chart to reflect completely the astrological symbolism is to make meaningful sentences. And I've seen, and I still see very often, that many, even professional astrologers, they do not apply the 3 levels that are required for a meaningful statement. So therefore, I've developed a very simple technique that many traditional astrologers don't agree, but it works, and what works is always good. In traditional astrology or in common astrology, it is kind of like a habit to always look at the planet first and to say, oh, you got Venus there, and that means that and that. Well, there is, of course, truth to it, otherwise it would not work. But it is more or less superficial, right? Because, as you've learned before, we have the ingredients level of the divine ingredients. We do have the planets that are the mediators. They are transmitting the energy, like Mrs. Merkel is visiting another country, and they're thereby creating a synthesis. And we have the worldly level. So in every statement, that doesn't mean to have to be in one sentence, but at least in a paragraph, the symbolism needs to be reflected perfectly. Otherwise, your statement will lack of the wholeness that the chart provides in its symbolism and its language. So, a very simple thing, even when you practice at home, you take either a chart, and I would recommend don't take a chart of your partner or of someone any close to you. I would even recommend invent a chart. Don't use a chart of a celebrity, because most celebrities have an outer persona, by their PR department and all that, and it has nothing to do with how they really are. Trust me, I know a lot of celebrities and they are very different. Anyway, we cut that out. So the best thing is you just invent a chart. And you don't have to invent a whole chart, because there are certain areas where you can exercise or rehearsal your knowledge best. And so you just take a white piece of paper and let's say you just draw a 4th house cusp, like the lowest point in the sky, the Imam Kuli. And let's say you're in office on lunch break and a colleague walks by and says, hey, can you tell me a number between 1 and 12? And the person says 7. Well, 7 is the 7th sign, Libra. So you draw Libra on the 4th house cusp. And then someone else is walking by and says, hey, give me a number between 1 and 12. And the person says 5. So now you put the ruler of the sign of Libra, which is found on the 4th house cusp, in the 5th house. Yeah? And you already have something where you can write a movie script about it. It's all in there. So now we just look at a certain symbolism. Having said that, what we do, and the best way for you to rehearsal is, because we seem to be in a duality, but we only seem to be. Duality is also reflected by question and answer. So you will, with a good question, the answer is inherent. So what I'm trying to say is start asking yourself questions. Do not sit in front of a horoscope and go what does it mean? What does it mean? Oh my God, I have to look it up. I don't know. What does it mean? That doesn't get you anywhere. It's just a complete waste of time. But if you ask one good question, for instance, how was the childhood? How was the mother? Or how does the person relate to his or her inner values? What are the needs of that person in regards of self-reliance, self-love, self-acceptance? What is the potential of the person? How was the father? What kind of people does the person look for in the hope of an intimate relationship? How is the person in an intimate relationship? What is his belief structure? How does the person love to travel? How does the person love to read? How does the person process information? What kind of groups does it prefer? What is its take, like his or her take, on spirituality? These were basically just little examples, wildly mixed, from the archetypes of the 12 living areas, the 12 houses. So you take any question. And one good question, as I said, is like, okay, how was the mother? Mother, we already learned. Mother has something to do with the moon. Yeah? Because 28 days, which is in correlation with the menstruation circle. So the moon is the ruler of the fourth sign, which is Cancer. But Cancer is the heavenly ingredients. We don't want to look into a natal chart where is Cancer. That's not the first step. We want to look at the fourth house. Because the fourth house is the worldly correlation of the fourth ingredients in the sky, the heavenly sign of Cancer. So we look at the fourth house. So step number one, I will have it listed here. Step number one is basically, you have a question. And the question leads automatically to an archetypical or archetypal area, like mother. Now you have mother. Mother is Cancer, but Cancer is the fourth sign. And because it is the fourth sign, we want to now look in the individual chart at the fourth house cusp. Now we already know what house, what area we have to put our focus on. That's step number one, the house. But the house by itself doesn't give you any information, and every house in a horoscope does have a sign on the beginning of that what we call house cusp. You could imagine that every house would be like a room, as if the whole chart would be a round building with 12 rooms. As each of us goes to the kitchen to cook or to the bedroom to sleep sooner or later. Basically, each of these 12 rooms in the chart that we look from above is a life area. Every kitchen is for cooking, but not every kitchen has the same interior design. Some might have tiles in black, some might have like little flowers, those kind of things. So you could see that the house is a life area where you do certain things, a worldly area. Mother, childhood, fourth house. And the sign would be the wallpaper, the interior design, the quality, how, or the interior design. Is it tiles or is it just wallpaper? And that's the first step. After you figured out, relative to a question, you figured out what is the archetype, the house that we look at. Step number one, the sign on the house cusp. What sign do I find on the house cusp? That's the first step. Step number one in any analysis is you start with the house and the sign that you find at the house cusp. But step number two needs to be entwined and woven into that step number one for you not to make wrong statements. Step number two is, where is the planetary ruler located in a house, in a sign, and aspects? So every planet is always in a chart as well in a house, i.e. a room in that building, in a certain interior design, wallpaper. So let's say, as I said, the fourth house cusp would be Libra, and you learned that Libra is very giving, very focused on others, is trying to find balance. They are not balanced, they're trying to find balance. And finding balance means you go through quite some extremes, which we'll learn later. So but it has a lot to do with beauty. The planetary ruler relative to the phases we had learned is Venus, which is the love goddess. So it is about beauty, it's about kindness, nice words, it's about looking what are the needs of others, etc. So if you would have a Libra on the fourth house cusp and you just do step number one and you begin making sentences, very simple, by using one word that you know from the archetype of ingredients Cancer, Moon, fourth house, let's say nurturing, because mother should be nurturing, archetype is nurturing. And now you take one keyword from what you will learn from Libra. Let's say beauty, yeah? Or let's say harmonious. You would now put these words together like Scrabble, and you would have the sentence, mother's nurturing was harmonious and beautiful. And that's absolutely right in regards of a Libra on the 4th house cusp. But you have to do step number 2, same time, which is where is the planetary ruler of that house, which means the planet that rules over the sign that is on the house cusp, located in another house and sign. And as I just invented, the Venus would be in the 5th house. The 5th house is like Leo and would be probably in the sign of Scorpio. Well, now you kind of like, have a problem with that like harmonious nurturing. One practical hint. What you can do is you look basically at the house and the wallpaper, and it gives you the first idea, the first of like, like on a stage you would have like the background, the lighting, the costumes. Yeah. So that would be Libra way. The mother and nurturing would be a Libra setup. Let's say like, elegant clothes, nice colors, not too bright. No? Everything smells nice. And then the second step, the planetary ruler of that house, which is always the planet of that rules over the sign on that house cusp, just to repeat it, called planetary ruler, is now in the 5th house in Scorpio. Always use for the step number 2 the word how. How was the harmonious nurturing? Okay, that gets you further, because otherwise you get like a little like, what is more important, the sign or the planet? So we have to set up, we have a Libra mother kitchen nurturing, all right? So we describe it, well, it appears that your mom was very harmonious and in her nurturing way, very much focused on being balanced and appearing beautiful. How did she do that? Now you go on step number 2, the ruler in the sign of Scorpio, deep, withholding, eventually manipulative, or just toxic, right? 5th house, very, very Leonian, like, look, your mom made you soup. Isn't the soup great? Say ah to mom, give me applause, I'm good, right? So this is very exaggerated, but the word how really helps a lot. And now before I go and continue with that, what I would recommend after you have learned the archetypes that we will go step by step, either you get yourself index cards yourself. And when you listen to the videos and I emphasize an archetype, like what I just said, Libra would be harmony and learning balance, and therefore it goes through extremes. You write down harmony, learning balance, extremes. So that you would have 12 index cards. We only need 12 index cards. The whole astrology is 12 index cards. Very simple. And the first index card, first sign, spring, is Aries. So the headline would be Aries. The ruler of Aries is Mars, and it correlates with the 1st house / the ascendant. That's your headline. And then you write down the archetypes of that. And the second, Taurus, Venus, 2nd house, you do another index card. And you write down the keywords. Because for this technique of meaningful sentences, you can easily apply it by simply then, let's say you have no idea what Libra means. You see a Libra on the 4th house cusp. You take one of your index card that says Cancer, Moon, 4th house, and you put it there. You take the other index card that says Libra, Venus, and 7th house, or descendant, same thing. Put it next to each other. And now you pick one word out of this card, one word out of the other card, like in Scrabble, and you put them together. And the moment they make sense, they are astrological. In that moment, you can be sure your statement is absolutely accurate and correct. Yeah? So now, for the second step, where I invented the Venus would be in Scorpio, ruler of the fourth house, in the fifth house, we would need another index card. We would need the index card for the fifth house, which has the headline Leo, Sun, fifth house. We pull that out, maybe in a second line. And we pull out the Libra, because the Venus rules over Libra, and the Scorpio card, which says Scorpio, Pluto, 8th house. And now you take one word of each card in the spirit of how did the mother harmoniously nurture, right? You just take any card, any word, one word, one word, one word. Like, you know, Lego? Yeah? It's like Lego boxes. Yeah? Every word is a little like Lego piece, and you just put them together. And if they fit, yeah? Not in terms, oh, I cannot know that, this might be wrong, how should, no. If it makes sense. Yeah? Like it could be that you have, like, you do the Libra fourth house thing, and you say, like, Mom was harmonious, she was beauty, she was giving, she was all those kind of things. And you make all these nice statements, and now you come to step number 2, and you see, like, Scorpio fifth house, she was powerful, like center stage diva. Yeah? Leo likes to perform, stand in the center, as I have to stand here right now. And Scorpio, has hidden agendas, could be manipulative, has a very deep sense of a fear of rejection, and therefore might x-ray the other person first to know where their weak spots are. To when I feel threatened, Scorpio, I might be able to pull the right string and do power games. So, and now you have the kind of like, okay, the mom was like center stage power game manipulative, but she's also like nurturing and sweet and harmonious. That does not match. Oh yes, it does. Right? There are many people that have a very sweet persona, right? And behind it is like an abyss where you don't want to step in. So, allow yourself, God's zoo is bigger than we think. So, using those index cards is really, really helpful. Therefore, the right brain will intuitively pick, let's say among 20 archetypal keywords, exactly the right word. And your mind, your logical mind will go, no, this cannot be, but you will get, and that's usual when you have a good intuitive statement, you get a physical sensation with it. A heat, a joy, a happiness, some have a scent or hear a sound. So that's the combination, like to bring these two together. So get yourself, please, index cards. And then you just follow the steps. There's a question. The question leads to a certain archetype. From the archetype, you know what house you have to examine regarding to the divinely ingredients archetype. Then you look first, sign on the house cusp. You make meaningful sentences. Make 3 or 4 meaningful statements. Just as simple. Then step number 2, where's the planetary ruler in sign and house? And please combine 1 and 2. Your mother was harmonious, but always very overpowering in her performance. Overpowering would be Scorpio, performance would be Leo. Now the client goes, yes, she looked great, and you think like, oh my God, she's the one who nurtures me, but there was always a kind of like something, right? Right? Or there was, you could like write essays about it. The third step is now, you look if there's eventually planets. Step number 3, eventual planets in the house that we are examining. You look at the fourth house again. And if there are planets, you might, work them in. If there's the sun in that Libra fourth house, you need the Leo card again. Yeah, you already have the Libra card, you already have the fourth house card, which basically emphasizes the Leo fifth house archetype in the whole thing. Yeah, so you now know mom was really like, a powerhouse diva. Step number 4, highly important. Most astrologers don't use that. Where is the natural ruler of that house that we are examining in house, sign, and aspects? Number 4, where's the natural ruler of that house? Well, the natural ruler of the 4th house is always the moon, because the 4th house is like the 4th ingredients, Cancer, and its ruler is the moon. So if the moon is now in the 8th house, in the sign of Aquarius, in my invented chart, then you need the Aquarius card, you need the Scorpio card. Oh, I already had the Scorpio card, so Scorpio gets a second score. Make sense? By that kind of like step-by-step analysis, if you would give scores, you can actually see where to put the emphasis on. Of course, Cancer in this subject has highest emphasis, but we already have like Libra gets 2 scores because Libra's on the 4th house cusp, step number 1. And we have said the Sun would be in the 4th house in Libra, so Libra gets another score. Regarding the 3rd question, Scorpio got a score by question number 2 because the Venus, rule of the 4th house, is in Scorpio. And now, step number 4, where's the natural ruler, which is always the moon of the 4th house, is to be found in the 8th house. So that emphasizes, you could actually give scores. How often do I need the Scorpio card? How often do I need the Leo card? And if you have like 5 times Scorpio and 1 time Libra, you know where to put the emphasis. So these 4 steps are utterly, utterly, utterly important. And if you make 3 meaningful sentences for every step, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and you just do them like Scrabble, you don't think, you just put the words together, whenever you do that, at one point, you will see a repetitive theme. And naturally, your intuition will start to guide you into a knowledge where you are basically not involved, because a good astrologer is non-attached. You're like the one who reads the news. He just reads the news. Doesn't matter what the news are. So you're getting into like translating the heavenly language of astrology via the archetypes into the worldly. So to wrap these meaningful sentences up is, you have a question, you imagine a question, be practical. Figure out what the question correlates to the zodiac signs of the zodiac, i.e. Cancer or Leo or whatever. Then go to the correlating house. Like Mother is Cancer, but the correlating house in any given chart is the 4th house. And then step number 1, what is the sign of the house cusp? Combine step number 1 with step number 2, where is the planetary ruler? Located in house, sign, and aspects. These 2 have to be entwined, because otherwise you might have a Sagittarius on the 4th house cusp. Oh, your mother was so happy and she was traveling, and then you find Jupiter somewhere, with things, and it's not. And then so combine number 2, number 1, number 2. Step number 3 is, are there eventually any planets in the house that we are examining? And if yes, you take for each planet the correlating index cards and make meaningful sentences relative to the quality of the planet, which is a ruler of a sign, which is located in that house that we're examining, probably in the same sign or possibly in another sign, which sometimes happens. If you do not have planets in a house that you're examining, then please don't fall for this collective misunderstanding among astrologers that house would not be important. I have to mention that there are some really, lots of them, that go like, oh, you don't have planets in the 7th house, so relationship is not important for you. That is really wrong, to use a very nice word. Because, that would also mean if you don't have planets in the 4th house, that would mean you don't have a mother, or you didn't have a childhood. Or if you don't have planets in the 1st house, which has to do with birth, you don't have a body. So, skip those things. Houses can be empty and yet they're important. That's why this outline, step number 1, sign of the house cusp. Step number 2, where's the planetary ruler in house and sign and aspects. Combine 1 and 2. Step number 3, are there eventual planets in the house that we're examining? If yes, please do them step by step with the index card. With every planet or step, you make 3 meaningful Scrabble sentences with your Lego pieces from the index card. Step number 4, where is the natural ruler of that house? The natural ruler of the first house is always Mars. The natural ruler of the second house is always Venus, because the second sign is Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. The natural ruler of the third house is always Mercury, because Gemini is the third sign, is ruled by Mercury, no matter what you have in the third house cusp. The fourth house, natural ruler is always the moon. The fifth house, natural ruler is always the sun. The sixth house, natural ruler is always Mercury. The seventh house, natural ruler is always Venus. The eighth house, natural ruler is always Pluto and Mars as the co-ruler or old ruler. The natural ruler of the ninth house is always Jupiter. The natural ruler of the 10th house is always Saturn, because Saturn rules the 10th sign, which is Capricorn. And the 10th house is the 10th house. The natural ruler of the 11th house is always Uranus. Please pronounce it in an English way and proper way. And the co-ruler is Saturn. And the natural ruler of the 12th house is always Neptune and old ruler or co-ruler Jupiter. So that's step number 4. These 4 steps are absolutely required for you to make meaningful, fitting, reflecting analysis of the symbolism in a chart. If you want to be very ambitious, which sometimes is needed, the step number 5 would be, where do we find the natural sign regarding that question? So if the question was, how was the mom, how was the childhood? And we know, okay, mom and childhood is archetype of Cancer. So we go and look for Cancer being sign number 4. We go to the 4th house cusp. Is now step number 5. Where in the chart do I find the sign of Cancer? And step number 6, are there eventual planets in there? If you have, let's say, to that question, the person would have 4 planets in Cancer, most likely in the 1st house. Yeah? Because a Libra rising often, Libra 4th house brings often a Cancer rising. Then of course you need to work these 5 planets in the natural sign Cancer in the 1st house into that question of the client, or your invented question, how was the mom, how was the childhood, right? But the priority, meaning like the how you emphasize the statements. Step number 1, step number 2 are highest priority. They weigh more. Step number 3, eventual planets, have a certain kind of an emphasis. Step number 4, the natural planet, is important. Step number 5, step number 6, the natural sign, where do we find that, and are there any planets in the natural sign, have of a minor and lower priority. So with this whole system, you can, without making any statement before you make any statement, you can already see what archetypes are emphasized. Scorpio, Leo, And by that, you track down your statements from the archetypes on your index cards. And I guarantee you, with you practicing, best with invented charts, with invented houses, if you practice just for the sake of practicing, your brain is building new dendrites and synapses and connections, that the more you practice, the more you will automatically put certain words together and they hit the spot. So this technique is really amazing and will help you greatly. Finish.
Free your mind.
Remember times without time.